All right, my friends, today is day number 35. Today ends week number 5. My God, things are flying by. Time flies when you are having fun and feeling good. If I would have told you 5 weeks ago you would be exercising, meditating, yogaing, eating well, walking about, tai chiing, qigonging, etc., you got it. You would have probably thought I was crazy. How many of you came into this with doubts? How many of you came into this not knowing if it could work? How many of you came into this not knowing if you were up for the challenge? You were and you are. And now the key is to take everything that you've learned and everything that you've invested, time, energy, money, exercise, yoga, tai chi, meditation, etc., 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 all of these health investments that you've made, and keep them growing. Keep them growing, okay? The benefits deepen as we go along. The benefits deepen. I expect you to continue to get bigger, better, stronger. I take back the bigger, unless you want to get bigger. I expect you to get better, stronger, faster. Better, stronger, faster, fitter, calmer, more relaxed, more in control, more comfortable, breathing better, breathing easier, not thinking about your breathing as much, etc., etc., etc. Steve Austin, a man barely alive. We can rebuild him. Better, stronger, faster. I'm going to end the week with a quick story about Steve Austin, not the wrestler, the $6 million man. On my first day of kindergarten, I did not go by my actual name. I told the teacher my name was Steve Austin. And at the end of the day, when my mother came to pick me up, she said, "Hi, I'm Noah's mother. I'm here to pick him up." And the teacher said, "We don't have a Noah in this class." And my mom was like, "Yeah, you do. That's him over there." And my teacher said, "That's not Noah. That's Steven." And I had on a tag that said, "Hi, my name is Steven," all day. Kindergarten, day 1. That was the original first day of boot camp. True story. All right, my friends, have a great day. Week number 5 in the books. Moving on to the 6th and final week. This is the part of the New York City Marathon. We're about to cross into Central Park. We can see it, we can feel it, we can taste it. Breathe that in, my friends, because that is the sweet smell of success. Let's do it. Alrighty, it is time for today's question of the day. Today's question of the day comes to us from Stephanie, and it says, "Noah, I have bradycardia. Specifically, my question is, should I be concerned about my bradycardia? Why are you asking me? How should I know? My doctors claim I have a strong, albeit slightly enlarged heart with relatively no edema." All right, so let's talk about this. So first of all, for those of you that do not know, bradycardia means a slow heart rate, okay? And a slow heart rate is anything below 60. This is in comparison to a fast heart rate, which is anything above 100, which is called tachycardia. So if you're good at math, you will have deduced by now that normal heart rate is between 60 and 100 beats per minute. Now, when I am questioning and thinking about if something is okay or not, I always come back to one question. Is this person able to maintain cardiac output sufficient to power the activity that we're doing, or sufficient to support the activity at hand? So for example, you can have a slow heart rate, okay? Many athletes have very, very slow heart rates. And the reason why they have slow heart rates is because they are so efficient and they pump so much blood with each stroke. So, excuse me. So there's something called cardiac output, and cardiac output is heart rate. So the number of beats per minute times stroke volume, which is how much blood are you pumping with each beat of the heart, with each contraction of the heart. The equivalent in the lungs is called minute volume, and the minute volume is the respiratory rate times your tidal volume, or the respiratory rate times the amount of air that you breathe in and out with each breath, okay? So again, the question is, why is your heart slow? So based on what I've seen you post before, I don't think it's because you're an athlete. And the difference between when an athlete's heart enlarges versus when somebody with a pathologic condition, whether it be hypertension or aortic stenosis or anything along those lines, the difference between those two hearts is that when an athlete's heart enlarges, the chamber size enlarges. And what that means is at the end of filling, there's a greater amount of blood in the left ventricle or in the ventricles, and that creates a greater stretch. And that greater stretch creates a greater contraction, and that greater contraction increases the stroke volume and therefore supports cardiac output. Now, when people have long-term hypertension or aortic stenosis or anything else that increases what we call the afterload of the heart, or in other words, the resistance against which the left ventricle has to contract, the chamber increases in size, except the inner chamber itself does not increase in size. I should say, let me back up a little bit. The ventricle increases in size, or the heart increases in size, except what happens is the left ventricle thickens, and instead of the inner chamber getting larger, therefore supporting a greater amount of blood at the end of filling, therefore supporting a greater stretch, therefore creating a greater contraction, what winds up happening instead is the wall of the heart and the heart muscle thickens, whereas the chamber size remains the same with the same amount of blood in it. So that could potentially be problematic for people, especially for people who have coronary disease, because in the same way that we talk about breathing and the supply and demand of oxygen during activity, the heart has a similar supply and demand system. And so the thicker the heart, right, the greater the muscle size of the heart, the greater the demand. And so if this person were to have any type of condition that would reduce the supply to the heart, like atherosclerosis or like coronary, and so if this person were to have anything that reduces the supply of blood flow to the heart, like atherosclerosis or coronary artery disease, well, then we could see a mismatch. And that's where we see what we call coronary ischemia, okay? Or the person may be able to support their activities at rest. However, once we add activity or anxiety into the mix, then there's that mismatch, well, again, creating the coronary ischemia, which is another way of saying that the heart is not getting enough blood flow. So back to your question. So when I see a heart rate that's either too high or too slow, or too low, I should say, too fast or too slow, too high or too low, I always ask myself, is this person able to meet cardiac output demands? And the way that we would check for that is stress testing, echocardiogram. Stress echo would be ideal. And then the question becomes, as the workload increases, does this person remain hemodynamically stable? So does their blood pressure go up does the blood pressure go up commensurate with the exercise that they're doing, okay? Or do they drop their pressure? Do they fail? Do they show any evidence of coronary ischemia, like chest pain, okay? Now here's where things get tricky, because shortness of breath can also be an anginal equivalent, okay? So for somebody with respiratory disease, that can be tricky to figure out, is this the heart? Is this the lungs? Is this something else altogether? In my opinion, okay, and again, you didn't say exactly how slow your heart rate is. So if we're talking about 60s, no problem. If we're talking about 50s, then we balance out, is the stroke volume sufficient with each pump of the heart to maintain cardiac output? If we're talking about 40s, which we do see sometimes, okay, then I'm starting to get a little bit concerned, and then I would want to know what's going on with the SA node or the sinoatrial node, which is the pacemaker of the heart, because the pacemaker of the heart really should not let your heart rate go much below 60 beats per minute, okay? So those are the things I would want to know. I would personally want either a stress echocardiogram or a nuclear stress test to be able to determine, is the heart getting enough blood under stress conditions, and is the heart able to meet cardiac output demands? So again, the question when it's slow is, why is it slow? Is it pumping fast enough and with a great enough stroke volume to maintain cardiac output? The problem when it's too fast is it's beating too fast, increasing the demand, but also, is there enough filling time so that the end of filling, the heart is sufficiently stretched so that the heart can sufficiently contract and again, maintain stroke volume and maintain cardiac output? I know that's a complex answer, but simple answer is I would want a minimum of a stress echo and or a nuclear stress test to determine what exactly is causing the heart to beat so slow. And again, and there was one other question that you had. Edema has nothing to do with this, so I'm not sure what you mean. Unless you're talking about peripheral edema, in which case, even more so what I just said. Okay? Check it out. Always better to be safe than sorry. And you know, I like objective data. True, they can listen to your heart and hear certain things, but I want to know for sure when your heart does this, this, and this, that it is able to meet the cardiac output demands, okay? Have a great day, everybody. Hope that helps. Bye.